today, we're going to come back to where we started yesterday. Could you remind us what our big question we're working on? Could you read that first, please? Thanks, Bubba.
Papa agrees with Mr. Avery's decision. Agree or disagree?
So yesterday we took a look here and we said, well, first, like, what does Mr. Avery decide to do? He's decided to abandon the Hi, boys and girls. Mr. Snider is Ms. Connick. We'll be teaching literature this year. He decided to abandon what? He decided to abandon the
boycott.
So they're not going to boycott anymore. Why? This is really critical we understand this. Turn to flip reminder.
Mr. Avery decided to abandon the boycott because Mr. Avery is a sharecropper and he's working on He's working on Mr. Granger's land, and if Mr. Granger kicks him off of the land, he's gonna be homeless, and then he's still
Not just he's not just gonna be homeless. Who else can be
homeless? His family's gonna be homeless, and he has to pay off his debt by being in a chain gang.
Chain gang. We talked about this idea of chain gang yesterday, and I wanted to add a little bit, like, very briefly, some historical background with this. Short clip we're going to watch that further explains this policy, this practice in the Jim Crow South, where African Americans were found guilty of very small, minor penalties or violating small laws that had just been made up for the sole purpose of putting them in prison so they could be forced to do work, which sounds a lot like slavery. Track the big board. I want you to think, how does this add to our understanding of why Mr. Avery is not going to do the boycott anymore?
For a period of nearly 80 years between the Civil War and World War II, black Southerners were no longer slaves, but they were not yet free.
What happened in that period of time was so much more terrible than anything most Americans recognize or understand today.
In one of the most shameful chapters of American history, generations of black Southerners were forced to labor against their will.
Free black people could be just picked up and put in jail. The sheriff department could sell people to corporations and coal mines.
He locked me up for 3 days. And after that he said, if I don't go to work, he'll put me in the river down there.
People's lives were truly stolen from them. Their freedom was taken away.
All the southern states used the criminal justice system to put African Americans back into a position as close to slavery as they possibly could.
These were real people who were deemed to be of no value. Maybe now, through the telling of this history, these individuals can receive some measure of justice.
You literally saw people on a chain gang. They're attached by the ankle with a chain. Do you blame Mr. Avery for his decision to not do the boycott anymore? Why or why not? I don't think, just to kind of get us back to, I don't think anyone blames Mr. Avery. But a question we're working on about Pop. This is tricky. Ultimately, this question is getting at two different people, African Americans, while they're fictional. Real African Americans had to live through this time period and they had to make decisions. And our whole book is about how do they deal with and respond to oppression, and this gets at that. Yesterday we took a look at part of this text, and last night you wrote your claim based upon some of the things that we had read. What do you think right now, where do you stand? I'm just curious, I want to hear it. Papa agrees with Mr. Morrison's decision. Agree? Papa agrees with Mr. Oh, I said Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry. Papa agrees with Mr. Avery's decision. Agree? Disagree. So we're about 60-40 split right now. Okay. Let's dive back into the text. Flip to the next page. 205. Just kidding, 204. And on 204, Mr. Avery's explaining why they have to drop out. What is the evidence on the bottom, on the top of page 204 that suggests that Papa disagrees? Could you read us just the evidence, Jason?
It says, I expect a man used to living on 50 could live on 40 if he wanted to hard enough.
Why would this suggest that Papa actually disagrees and thinks that Mr. Avery shouldn't have been in the boycott? This was tricky, we talked about this yesterday. Track Carla. Jonathan's tracking Carla. Frankie's tracking Carla.
This shows that Papa's angry disagrees at Mr. Avery because he thinks that Mr. Avery should continue working harder even though there's a lot of pain and even though he is scared of the consequences.
And I think part of this is also us thinking, if Papa were in Mr. Avery's shoes, what would he do? And he's saying if you wanted it bad enough, you would still push on. And yet, after Papa hears about the chain gang, about what Mr. Granger is going to do, on the bottom of 204, what does Papa say that suggests he actually supports and agrees with Mr. Avery? What's that line on the bottom of 204? Take a look. Looks like we didn't quite get there in this class. Let's get there right now. Could you meet me where it says Mr. Avery coughing? I'm on the bottom of 204. Find the paragraph that starts with Mr. Avery coughing. Be ready to read. Mr. Avery's coughing started again, and for a while there was only the coughing and the silence. But when the coughing ceased, Mr. Lanier said, "I pray to God there was a way we could stay in this thing, but we can't go on no chain gang, David." Papa nodded. "Don't expect you to, Silas." Mr. Avery laughed softly. "We sure had him going for a time, didn't we?" In the bottom of that page, what is the line that relates to our purpose? Underline it right now. What shows you that Papa agrees or disagrees? Read me just that line. Ariane?
It says Papa nodded. Don't expect you to.
Silas. It says don't expect you. Don't expect you to do what? What is that referring to? Kyle?
I think that's referring to not doing it.
Not going on the chain gang. Why would this suggest that Papa agrees with Mr. Avery's decision? This is interpretation. Window partner turn 2 foot. This suggests Sharon. Turn, try to Karen. Jonathan turned all the way around to try Karen. Try to distract Karen.
I think that Papa saying this means like don't expect you to. It means that he doesn't want to force him to do it because Nahana said that he knows what.
He doesn't want to force him to do what? Because this question is, does Papa agree with Mr. Avery's decision? Why is him saying this shows he agrees with his decision? Say it like that. This shows he agrees.
This shows that he agrees because when he says don't expect you to, he says that he's not expecting him to stay in the boycott because he knows that it would be hard to go to a chain gang and leave your family behind. And him nodding shows that he agrees.
He agrees and thinks that, hey, you should back out of this. Okay, so we have evidence to both sides. Meet me at the top of page 205. Notice what Stacy says. Eisen. Yes, Papa. Agreed Papa quietly. We sure did. When the men had left, Stacy snapped. They got no right pulling out. Just because them Wallaces threatened them one time, they go jumping all over themselves to get out like a bunch of scared jackrabbits. What is Stacy calling them here? He's essentially saying that Mr. Avery and Mr. Lanier are what? That they're... Oh, that didn't work so well. Sweet, I miss. That they're what? Batu? They're literally they're actual rabbits? It's figurative. What is he suggesting? They're cowards. Okay. Track me. Fast tracking me. Fast tracking me. When I say go, you're going to read all the way to the stop sign. You guys have 7 minutes. Pay attention to Papa's response. As you read the stop sign, you're going to continue to find evidence to both sides. Clear label, agrees or disagrees, and why. Go. Jesuit is in. Batu is in. Chennai is in. That's why we're diving into this. When I say go, I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine for a second that Papa, I know he's fictional, but imagine Papa walked into this room and he sat down on that stool right there. And you asked him, do you agree with what Mr. Avery did? What would he say to you? This is hypothetical. He doesn't actually say it. That's why we have to analyze it. What will he tell you? That's your claim. Do you have it in your head? Do you have what he ultimately thinks here? Listen. Now, Honda, part of the trick here is thinking about your evidence. Thinking about what he said, who he's talking to, when he says it. When I say go, I want you to flag E1, E2, then write your claim in your planning page. Prepare to discuss, 3 minutes go. Tati's going back to label E1 and E2. Chris is going back to label E1 and E2. Carla's going back to label E1 and E2. Love your energy. Merry Princess, Merry Princess. Before we go, I think that was wonderful. I just want to reground us in our habits. Please track the board. Ronald's tracking the board, Tati's tracking the board. Take a look. So what? Why are we thinking about these habits? 2 reasons. 1, by talking we learn from each other. And this is big here, right? Like, we're not going to learn anything if we're not deeply listening and revoicing the person before it's said. Also, it's like, we're learning from each other, but trying to get deeper into the text, right? And we're going to get deeper into the text by always using evidence and really digging in, right? The whole purpose of taking this time is to actually learn more from each other about the text. You keep a pencil. If you learn something, jot it down, because we're all going to be rewriting in our homework our answers to this question. But then there's something else. Upper school, high school, college, I want to remind you, this is a habit you have to have. And this is what so much of college is like, is this type of discourse. We need to be prepared for that. My final challenge to you, who's going to really convince this entire room that they have the best argument? They've actually figured out this text. Who is going to push themselves to push this entire room? Who's got the best argument? Kick us off, Sean. Track Sean. July's track Shawnee. Just track Shawnee.
Papa agrees that Mr. Avery made the right decision because he knows if he was in Mr. Avery's shoes, he would have had that to say. For example, on page 205, get there please. It says that young men, they gotta do what they gotta do, and I think that's strong. Wait, check me.
Scan for 100%. 2 are making it difficult for you.
And I think that's strong because if they didn't do what they have to do, they would have suffered the consequences and have goals to the chamber.
Link to assertion.
So this is why I say Papa agrees with Mr. Avery's decision.
Because he sees what?
Because he sees that they don't want to suffer the consequences of their actions.
Excuse me, Tatiana.
Sean, even though they're going to suffer the consequences of continuing boycotting, I still disagree. I still think that Papa did not follow.
Can I just correct you? Even though they could face consequences.
Even though they could face
Stay with her.
consequences, Papa disagrees with Mr. Avery's decision because Papa thinks that you shouldn't give up when things get hard. You should keep fighting it with everything you got until you die. Because on page 206, can you please go there on the second paragraph? It says, here's a lesson to be learned from that little cheap case girl, because we like it. Keep doing what we gotta do and we don't give up. We can't. Have me? This shows that Papa disagrees with Mr. Avery's decision because Papa's explaining to Casey how sometimes when things get difficult, you have to keep pushing, even if you're in a difficult decision. Because sometimes when you're in a difficult decision, you have to fight for what's right, and you just can't give up, even if times are hard.
Eliza.
I disagree with.
Doctor.
I disagree with you when you said that Papa disagrees, and I said that Papa agrees with Mr. Avery's decision because I think that Papa also thinks that it's too dangerous and risky that he has to go to Vicksburg because the Wallaces they're having too many threats to everyone, and on page 206. I said that it says, I don't think you and Mr. Morrison should go to Vicksburg right now, David. Oh, I meant 205. Sorry. It says, it's hard on a man to give up, but sometimes it seems there's just ain't nothing else you can do, and this evidence is showing that...
What do you want? Scan.
And this evidence is showing that Papa agrees with Mr. Avery not going to Vicksburg because he thinks that with everything happening right now, that it's too dangerous and that that it's okay for him to give up because it's better enough to not get hurt from something happening than to just do it.
This kind of comes up again and again, right? To your point, Jeliza, I see you. This idea, track me, thank you. This idea that, look, Papa is saying, pushing him, when he finds out the potential consequence, Sean, you brought up this line that it's hard on a man to give up, that line, right? But sometimes it just seems there ain't nothing else he can do. These guys have no other choice, right? That's what that's saying. Take a look at something. That's the line, right? And this line shows that Papa agrees with Mr. Avery, right? There's nothing they could do. They had to give up, right? I made another sentence, very similar but different. I rewrote this. Can you tell the difference between that sentence from the book and the one I wrote? Very subtle. What's the one small little difference here? Jessica.
On page 205, it says sometimes it seems, but then on your version you wrote sometimes they're just.
There ain't nothing else you can do. How does this phrase impact the meaning of this sentence and what Papa is saying about the decision Mr. Avery and Mr. Sylvia made? Turn.
I said that on page 205 when it says it seems, it means that there is still hope that you could do something, but
who's talking right now?
Papa.
So Papa's saying, talk to them.
Papa's trying to say that there looks like there's no hope for Mr. Avery or people who are boycotting, but there's still things that they could do. But when it says they're just, it means it's absolutely nothing they could do.
Track Chesley.
I agree with Janai when she said that the sentence means that there's still hope of something else that could be done. And I also like to add on that the sentence means what Papa said is that he's saying that even though during these hard times, these people think they could just give up. But Papa's saying that these people need to realize that there's always another way to
to go around the situation.
So, so would this suggest that Papa agrees with Mr. Avery or disagrees? Because Sean brought up this piece of evidence in his argument. I want to come back to you, Sean. Sean, what do you think about this?
I respectfully disagree with my statement, and this shows how Papa disagrees, because he thinks that there's still hope that that they might come back and like disagree with what they were saying before about like trying to stop themselves from boycotting, but he's hoping for the best, like if they can go back and suffer the consequences, even though they can still have hope to do this again.
Go ahead, Karen. Last one with this. Go ahead, try Karen.
Sean, I agree with you, and I would like to add on that I think that this piece of evidence is showing that Papa disagrees with Mr. Avery, because he thinks that even though there's still hope, even though he thinks that there will be no hope, and he thinks that there's nothing he can do, there is still hope, and that he could still survive, and he could still be in the boycott. It's just that his mind is set on something else, that he's thinking only about the consequences, but he's not thinking about like the chances he has.
It seems that way, right? It seems to him yet, but Papa's actually hinting at there is something you could do. Go to your homework. Everybody rewrite your assertion. No bueno. Tati and Sean is a mayor for your habits of discussion. Karen is a mayor for your habits of discussion. Jason and Nahanda were taking notes the entire time. It's an accolade. Janaya sits up strong. Carlos sits up strong.